The reviews are in for NBA's All-Star Weekend, and it's not great, Adam. We'll see what Matt and Hayes think. Should they stick with the tourney format? Does the dunk contest have a future? Why is Adam Silver being weird about the Dallas Mavericks potentially moving their franchise? And Draymond Green, he brought his hot takes. That's all today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets and your Shot Clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories with the help of Locked On's local experts. And with me are two of Locked On's premier national NBA experts from the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior NBA writer for the Action Network. He's the man of 1,000 podcast. It's Matt Moore. And from the Locked On Bulls podcast, our Prince of Petty, it's Hayes. Can't wait to get started on this episode, Matt and Hayes, because it feels like forever since we last talked, and a lot has happened over All-Star Weekend. And, we rarely build near complete consensus around anything in the NBA, but it appears that we have in the reactions to last night's All-Star Game presentation. To sum up what that consensus is, let me introduce Locked On Celtics host John Corrales.
First NBA All-Star broadcast ever. They kind of got the basketball part right. I think the tournament style was actually not bad. The entire broadcast was a circus. They kept stopping the game all over the place. It was just stoppage. TNT wanted to put on a concert and a tribute to themselves. The basketball part was a complete afterthought to the producers of the show. Every time Kevin Hart came on, and I like Kevin Hart. I have gone to Kevin Hart shows. He ruined everything about this broadcast. Every time he was on, there was a moment with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the first game where Kevin Hart comes on berating bigs for shooting threes, yelling at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Shai's like, "Can we play? Can we go now?" So multiple instances of players saying, what are we doing here? That is a terrible product.
Okay, strong statement there from John Corrales. Do you share it, Matt? Was it really that bad? Are people overreacting? What do you think?
I'm mad that John went so strong because puts me in a position where I have to go stronger. Was this the worst sports broadcast of all time? Let's go there. Let's go all the way with this. Unfathomably bad. Just wretched. Here's the biggest thing. A friend sent me this last night. A colleague sent me this last night. He said, I felt embarrassed for caring about the All-Star game. That to me was perfect. That broadcast embarrassed the players, the league, the sport, everything. It embarrassed everything. It made a complete joke of all of it. It was more about TNT than it was about the All-Stars. It was more about TNT than it was about the All-Star game. It was more about itself, building itself up. And it really revealed the rot inside of how the game has been presented and how much of a problem that is. I was disgusted with it, Hayes. And to be honest, I could only stand about 10 minutes of it. I switched over to the NBA app and watched the OT feed, which was just silence. I had no commentary and just watched live feeds of the various events because I could not stand it anymore. So bad, man.
Yeah, it was bad, terrible from a broadcast standpoint. The stoppage in the game was a big thing between stopping for let's do music, let's go to Kevin Hart, let's do all these other things. Over the course of the weekend, a lot of the broadcast things kind of stood out a lot as far as negatively. We're not even getting to the product on the court yet because that brings about a whole different part of the conversation. But overall, the NBA really needs to look at this and look at what other leagues do to make something feel special. They didn't make this feel special. You know what this felt like? This felt like something that you would see on somebody's YouTube channel. Not to knock YouTube creators, but when you're a when you're putting together a product and you're the NBA, you're TNT, you just need to have a better presentation. This just felt really amateurish, and it honestly hurt the enjoyment out of it because I actually liked the format, but the consistent stoppage for me just killed any momentum that I had for it.
Follow us on YouTube at Locked On NBA, by the way. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I think it's clear they had a presentation problem, but probably a 1-year presentation problem, right? Because this felt like TNT's senioritis. I don't know. This is going to be under a new umbrella next season. So let's move to what Hayes alluded to there. Do they also have a format problem? They completely revamped it, the tournament style involving the rising stars in this as well. Draymond Green did not like that aspect of it. Hayes, what did you think about the actual tournament format? Did it work for you, or do you want to see them move to something else next All-Star weekend?
It worked more for me than I initially thought that it would. I would like to see them continue to refine their tournament style because I do think there's something that you can unlock in that style that would bring about competition and things like that. So I like the tournament style. I just think that they gotta go back to the drawing board and critique a little bit of things on it.
I think all it really is people were upset that some guys didn't get to play that much, and I'm kind of like, it kind of always happens, man. Like, there's guys that are there as all stars, and there's the guys that play in the game. But I would be fine. Like, pull it back to 50, right? So if it's 50, then you're talking about like an average score across the 3 rounds of 150. That's about an all-star game. Sometimes it's up at 180, 200, but like that's pretty reasonable. That's pretty close to what I think we're trying to get to. You can go to 60 if you really want to, but I don't think you need to. The biggest thing is just like, and you know, there's some talk of like TNT was trying to fill time because the games were going faster than they expected. Yeah, it's okay for the broadcast to just be shorter, guys. Like sometimes, like this was part of my frustration. It's just like, hey, sometimes games are shorter. Like sometimes they just go fast. In football, they just run the ball and the clock runs. Like it's a sporting event. It's supposed to be a sporting event. It's okay if it's shorter. I asked on Twitter how long people want the event to be, and they were like, I want it to be. I gave a couple options, and the most popular one was 2.5 hours, 30 minutes of pregame. That to me seems perfect. 30 minutes of pregame, you run through, you do the first, like each round takes about 30 minutes and you have a little bit of filler time in there and you're done. This to me seems completely reasonable for how you want to try and get in and out of this event instead of making it this 3-hour long waste of everyone's time.
Yeah, I think the timing of the stoppages didn't make any sense in the length of the stoppages, but yeah. I think this whole critique of there being too many commercials, like I think people tuned out of All-Star Weekend for a while and then came back because like it's always been like that. This is I'll use a phrase that Ryan Bernardoni said on his he wrote this great Medium article on this weekend last year, and he called this a giant sales conference, and that's what this is ultimately, surrounded by some basketball. The problem was the execution. It just wasn't entertaining. Like all the Kevin Hart stuff, had that been entertaining, had some of the stoppage stuff actually been entertaining, then maybe this wouldn't have been as big of a problem. So should the NBA be focused on this event being taken seriously, or do they want it to be an entertaining product to a mass audience? Because I think there's a tension there. I don't know that it can be entirely both of those things at the same time and please everyone, Matt.
Yeah, it's evolved into, part of this is because the league has evolved into being a cultural entity too. And like this, you're always going to have a little bit of tension with, I think, between different demographics of like just basketball heads just want to watch the hoop side. But like the NBA has really benefited from the idea of like fashion and music and culture of it being this crossover. And if you're in the city, it's actually really amazing to go to all these events and see that. Like the intersection of basketball and culture is my favorite thing about going to All-Star Weekend. I just don't think you can really do that on a broadcast. Like you can't do it, especially for people that want to tune in and just watch a sporting event. This doesn't need to be like hyper intense. Okay. This doesn't need to be like gritty. They're prepared to battle for the all-star crowd. No, like it can still be like, it's an all-star game. It's an exhibition. It just doesn't need to be a joke. Like there's gotta be a healthy middle ground we can get to between super serious and not taking itself so serious. Like there's gotta be a middle ground here that they can find.
And Hayes, in terms of the competition level that we saw from the All-Stars, did we get to that middle ground? Did you see an extra competitive effort that didn't require like injuring themselves or injuring anyone else?
Yeah, and that's the thing that makes everything else around it like so much disappointing as far as from the presentation and broadcast standpoint, because I actually think the competition on the basketball court was some of the best that we've seen in the last couple of years. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. I just think that if you could refine everything else around it, I think you're onto something here with the tournament format. That's why I actually am in favor of keeping the format.
Shout out to the Rising Stars. I don't care what Draymond Green says. They went at it. The way they were closing out on the 3-pointers when Shaq's team was 3 points away was awesome. Like guys leaping through the air to contest those three, denying Steph Curry the night. Like that's the kind of stuff that's really cool. So I really like that part of it. I think it was really great. I think the competition level, Jaren Jackson tried. You had guys that actually tried. Now I will say, like, one of the problems with having the OGs is like, look, I'm not going to look, they tried, but nobody wanted the OGs to get embarrassed because you have so much respect for those guys. And that to me shaped the way that some of these games went. And to me that's a little bit of a problem where it needs to kind of be you shouldn't have a structure where it's like, if you're able to look at it and be like, oh, that team should win. You should not be able to do that. They got to get away from that, I think.
I love the tournament format. I love what they're doing with the NBA Cup. I think they should lean harder into it. I think they should include a EuroLeague team into this, maybe have another tournament that gets an international team involved in this, have the top G League team be involved in this. I think you just lean, if you don't go USA versus World, which I would also like, I think you just lean super hard into this idea. But let us know what you think on YouTube, youtube.com/@LockedOnNBA. Coming up, there were some noticeable absences from the All-Star lineups, including LeBron James. A 20-year run ends. I'll ask Matt and Hayes if they have a problem with that. Coming up on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by Hungry Root. When it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning, I've always struggled to find the time between work, life, podcasting, to try to eat healthier. I'd buy things I didn't need, and I'd still end up stressed about what to cook. And then I discovered Hungry Root. It's been a total game changer. Hungry Root handles your grocery shopping and meal planning. They recommend meals based on your taste and your health goals, from anti-inflammatory to high-protein options. They've got it all. And the best part, every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. Quick, healthy, and delicious meals delivered straight to your door. It doesn't get any easier than this. Even my toddler, who is an incredibly picky eater, loved every meal that I made with Hungry Root. It made me feel like a rock star in the kitchen, and it can make you feel that way as well. You're going to love Hungry Root as much as I do. For a limited time, you can get 40% off your first box, and you get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA. hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA. Don't miss out. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Your favorite NBA team has a free daily newsletter. Go check it out at LockedOnDaily.com. Subscribe and stay up to date with local expert analysis. Okay, I mentioned that we had two noticeable absences. LeBron James decided it was a late scratch, decided to rest a sore ankle, and then Anthony Edwards, conflicting reports. I'm not sure if it was a groin injury or a cold. It was I'm not sure it was either, but I won't speculate. I'll leave that to Matt and Hayes. Any problems with the late scratches that did not provide the NBA an opportunity to find substitute all-stars for these players, Hayes?
I mean, yeah, ideally you would want to find substitutes for those guys just to keep everything all even. But maybe I have my conspiracy hat on. Maybe I'm being the Prince of Petty.
Oh boy.
But to me, it feels like this was probably known going into this. Like the last thing you want is the day before the All-Star game for LeBron James. Well, yeah, I'm not playing today. So some of that maybe has me thinking that maybe some of this was well timed as far as the announcement of it. Maybe that's just me. I have a conspiracy theory hat from time to time, but like I think you got to make these decisions on who's going to play, who's not going to play, or maybe just have some alternates there in ready to go in case something last minute does pop up.
I don't think that's fair to them to take them away because, you know, one of my favorite stories is that Rasheed Wallace did not want to get selected. He was telling media, like, do not select me. Do not do it. And the reason was his wife had planned a vacation. And then Rasheed got selected and was like, You kidding me? Because his wife was so mad at him for taking away their vacation. Like, that's the kind of stuff that goes on. So I don't think you can have the alternates. Like, LeBron's obviously earned it, I think. And LeBron's a 3-time All-Star MVP. But also, I really do kind of look at his rise to coincide with the decline of the All-Star game. Now, I'm not one that wants to blame LeBron for everything, but I think there's a little bit of a correlation there. I don't think LeBron has ever wanted to take this event seriously. I think LeBron's always been a guy that's had a lot going on All-Star weekend in terms of business stuff and entertainment stuff, and he's a person that knows people, and so like that's part of the equation here. And I'm a little bit more annoyed at, like, I get it, he's probably got a sore groin, I get it, right? But like, the odds of him being hungover are what, 80%? Like, it's like 80% that he was hungover. Like, there's a 20% chance that he misses the. My favorite will be if he misses the next game so that they can make it look like it was legitimate. Like, that's always a fun one. And like, I don't really care. I'm also just kind of like, look, you know, for the alternates where people are like, Domantas Sabonis could have been there, and it's like, do you really want like the last minute? You get fit, like, you're not really an all-star then. You're not really an all-star. It's fine. Not everybody gets to be an all-star. It's okay. You can still come out to the Bay if you want to hang out and go to all the parties and do all the stuff. It's fine. But that's, to me, is also indicative of this broader thing, which is, it's funny. TNT thought it was about themselves, and Draymond talked about being upset. We'll get to him later about the rising stars because it was an insult to the stars, because the players think it's about them, and it is, but like, it's also about them in the league. And so it's not like just this like, hey, let's just make you feel good about yourself. There's a lot of people that I think have there's not a lot of what's best for the NBA or for fans going into this weekend. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, we'll get to Draymond's. He had a lot of comments. I want to know. We didn't do favorite things of the week last week, so I'd really like to know your favorite Draymond hot take. We'll get to those a little bit later in the show. But let's talk about All-Star Saturday night, because what tends to happen sometimes, or at least has happened over the past couple of years, is that Sunday disappoints, but a lot of people are talking about Saturday, and it covers some of those issues. And so let's talk about some of the events that happened on Saturday night. Failing to three-peat is very in right now in pro sports, but Mac McClung fought off a valiant effort from Spurs rookie Stephon Castle to become the first player to take home the slam dunk contest for the third consecutive All-Star Saturday night. McClung is a member of the Orlando Magic's G League affiliate. Here's Locked On Magic host Philip Rossman-Reich on McClung's high-flying feats.
Is a true dunk artist. My favorite take that I saw about this, again, I'm someone that believes things aren't as bad. People just like to complain. It's kind of our society now that people love to complain about things. The dunk contest isn't better or worse than it ever was. The athletes are, I think, a lot better. Maybe there's a lot more, little too much pre-planned, where previous dunk contests were, the early dunk contests were pretty much just bare bones. Mac McClung is a true magician, pun intended. He is truly someone that thinks about and executes dunk contest dunks at a very, very high level. And, my favorite take, I saw this in The Athletic, was that the dunk contest isn't broken. It doesn't need stars. It just needs people who care enough about the contest to play out.
Okay, Matt, does the dunk contest have a post-Mac future? Or are we looking sort of existentially at the end of the dunk contest?
No, it will continue until the checks stop cashing. So we will continue to have the event, and guys will continue to not want to do it. Now, the guys all talk after the McClung thing, but they always lose that initiative by the time that we get to January when they get asked. I would love it if Ja did it. I would love it if anyone with star billing did it. It's a really big missing piece. One of the things I've been thinking about that I hadn't really realized is that there's more of a narrative to the dunk contest than I kind of thought. Where you have Jordan versus Neek, obviously, but like one of the things was Zach LaVine versus Aaron Gordon. Like, it was a little bit of a rivalry in terms of that dunk contest. Them doing it back-to-back years. There's a storyline, and I do think that that's kind of important for the dunk contest. Whether it's it used to be really the signifying arrival of a new star in the league. Jordan did it, Kobe did it, and then LeBron. No, wait, LeBron never did it because it's LeBron. So I really don't like that I'm having to take shots at him today, but I do think that there's a little bit of a narrative missing, and that to me is kind of the component. If they can get back to that, it'll be, I'll think, a little bit better, but they're never going to get rid of it. It's just too easy for them to get sponsorship for and make money off of.
Yeah, the dunk is the dunk. Like, it's always exciting. Dunks are exciting. People enjoy it. Would it be more fun if more stars got into it? Yeah, but I think the dunk contest is always going to have a certain level of excitement as long as you have people that actually take pride in the putting forth in their effort into having creative dunks. That's something that Mac McClung has done. Now, if you can get a John Morant to get back into it, what he tagged Zach LaVine, I can't remember who else, and asking them to come on too. Like, yeah, of course, that would be a huge spectacle to watch players of that level have a dunk contest. But I think even if you don't, it's going to be marketable. It's going to be easy to do. The NBA I still like the idea that we've come up with here before. Bring some of the best dunkers from around the world, whether the NBA or not. Let them get in the dunk contest. It could be fun to watch.
Yeah, I like that. I think with a new broadcast team and a new presentation, new producers, I hope that someone comes along and presents a new way to talk about dunks. Give us some language, give us some history of dunks, give us some ideas of what the moves are, and present those. Like, we watch Olympic sports that we have no idea about, snowboarding, different things, but we're introduced to all these terms that we like and we can connect to. And I think that's what the dunk contest has been missing, some kind of frame of reference that might get us away from the gimmicks and get us talking about what they're actually doing. The NBA has a dunk score now, so they're trying to put some framing around it. I think they should lean into that.
You mentioned kind of giving us an idea of what they're trying to do. You want to know what would absolutely build up if somebody would call their shot and was like, I'm dunking from the free throw line. Like, imagine, like, we would have like a week of content based off of that. Of, is he going to be able to do it? Can he pull it off? If somebody's like, I'm dunking from the free throw line, I'm calling my shot. Like, that to me,
I like that.
That would do a lot, I think, for adding in. But the problem is, like, if he fails, wah, wah, wah.
Right. So we had a few other things go down. Tyler Hero wins the 3-point contest. No three-peat for Dame. The skills contest happened. Victor Wembanyama tried to game the skills competition. What else did you notice from Saturday night that you liked, that you think should change, that you didn't like?
I'll go with I don't believe Victor Wembanyama at all that this was his idea. I don't believe him at all. This is the most Chris Paul thing that has ever Chris Paul'd. You can't Chris Paul anymore. Then this thing is stupid with how it's built, and I'll show you how while I win it. The most Chris Paul thing imaginable. I loved it. I thought that was phenomenal. So good. Like, that's great stuff.
Hayes, hold on. Listen, Hayes, do you buy that? Do you think that this was Chris Paul's idea, or was this Wemby cooking up some? So, I mean, he came into this thing saying, "I'm going to be hyper competitive." I mean, I kind of buy that he talked CP into it.
I think that CP hyped the young man up and got him on board for it. I'm sorry, I'm absolutely right along with Matt there. This seems like a Chris Paul thing all the way through.
Yeah,
this would now I know that he's not a rookie anymore, but this would be like the ultimate rookie hazing, is to like bring a guy on and take the fall for. But I want to actually go to something serious on this. I think the NBA completely dropped the ball not allowing Allie LaForce to interview those guys in the moment. You had an NBA official come down and say, no, we're not doing the interview, as they DQ'd both of those guys. It's the skills competition. I think part of the problem is, like, the NBA forgot that this is a television event. Just make good TV. Why wouldn't you want the interview in that time? They can't decide whether they want this thing to be a serious thing or whether they want it to be entertainment.
I'll take the L here as somebody that participates on the gambling side. That's why, is you can bet on the skills comp. I might have had a wager on the Cavs team, cha-ching. And so, like, that's why is the league doesn't want any sort of controversy over something being not right with that, where it's just like, look, if you're betting on the skills competition, if you're a sicko like me, you've made your own bed, sir. There's no reason for complaints to be out there. But I think that's why it happened. But I agree with you. They should have interviewed him.
All right, Hayes, final word on Saturday night before we move on.
Much like all the All-Star Weekend potential, but still disappointing.
All right, coming up on Locked On NBA, Adam Silver got an opportunity to field questions from the media. He had some interesting comments on the Luka AD trade. We'll hear from Locked On Mavericks coming up next on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, live bets can be placed throughout the game. If you miss the opening tip-off, no problem. If you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, stay in the action. Looking for a bigger payout? Combine live bets into a same-game parlay. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for a shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. All-Star Weekend means a lot of things to a lot of people. One of those things is that we get to hear from NBA Commissioner Adam Silver on a variety of topics. He fielded a question on the Luka Doncic-Anthony Davis trade, and his answer was very interesting to the host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast. You'll hear first from Nick Angstad, who has the quote that he was interested in from Adam Silver.
One thing for sure, whether or not history will ultimately judge this as a smart trade, they did what they thought was best in the best interest of their organization. I have absolutely no knowledge or belief that there were any ulterior motives. No doubt in my mind the Dumont Adelson families brought that team to keep it in Dallas. I have no doubt whatsoever they're committed to the long-term success of that franchise. You know what I thought with that quote? Do you? You have no doubt that they have the long-term success of the franchise? They traded a 25-year-old superstar?
I do believe in when it comes to keeping the franchise in Dallas. I've never bought into any of that stuff. There's a lot of crazy things that have to happen for you to move a franchise, including a vote with all the other owners and stuff. There's just so much different stuff.
Yeah, I agree that. I just don't know about what long-term success means for the franchise anymore. I don't know what that word means.
There was some weird, my t-shirt is bringing up questions already answered by my t-shirt energy from Adam Silver on the commitment of the Adelsons to Dallas and keeping the Mavericks there. Hayes, you've already put on your tinfoil hat once on this episode. Do you want to put it on again? Do you buy into some of these deeper trade conspiracies as it relates to the Mavericks' future in Dallas?
Absolutely. And that's mainly just because I am a conspiracy theorist. So sometimes you just got to follow where things seem to be headed. Now, I've read some things before, nothing like from a credible source, that there is some thought maybe about them potentially moving out of Dallas eventually. That would be crazy if that were to happen. But there seems to be something going on here. Maybe that's just my brain looking for logical and why you would trade a 25-year-old perennial player that's always in MVP conversation. But then again, one thing that logic cannot factor in for is Nico Harrison. So there's that part of it.
Yeah, all the conspiracy theories fall apart when you realize the loss of evaluation that losing Luka causes you. Now, players come and go. That's part of it. But Luka's inherent value to the franchise from a marketing standpoint, sponsorship standpoint, all of the other revenue opportunities, even ones that fall outside of BRI, is just too high. So even when we talk about, let's remove the moving part, just trying to get pressure on the lieutenant governor to soften his stance to allow gambling because he's the only thing standing in the way in Texas. Even if that's the case, it doesn't make sense because it's you'd still be better off with Luka, with gambling legalized, being able to build your casino. There's no way that this makes sense. Now, the conspiracy theories I do believe in, I'll just say this. If I was a Mavericks fan, I would want 24/7-hour surveillance on Nico Harrison over the next 10 years. I want to make sure he is not meeting with anybody from Nike. I want to make sure he's not meeting with anybody from the Lakers. If Nico Harrison gets fired in 2 years, and then there's a quiet 18-month period, and then suddenly Lakers announce additions to front office staff. Nico Harrison, advisor to the front office. Would you really be surprised? Because I would not. That, to me, is a conspiracy side that I'm most interested in.
Final topic on the show today. We did not get an opportunity last week to close the week out with our favorite thing, so I thought we would take this opportunity to do favorite ridiculous thing that Draymond Green said yesterday as part of his duties on the TNT desk, and he gave us a veritable buffet of things to choose from while Kenny Chuck and Shaq were busy trading inside jokes with Kevin Hart, Green had his run of the pre- and post-game TNT desk and fired off several hot takes, including basketball is boring now, that the Rising Stars have no business at the All-Star game, that he's been offered the Warriors head coaching job after he retires, and he guaranteed a Warriors championship this season. So, Matt, we'll start with you. What was your favorite hot take from Draymond Green and why?
God, this is tough because there's so many. There's just I hate all of these. These were all so dumb. Him guaranteeing the championship is fine. Every player thinks that they're going to win the championship. He's wrong, but it's fine. The Rising Stars one, for some reason, really ticked me off. They tried harder than any of the other teams. It's a young guy. He's always talked about how frustrating it was for the old heads to have looked down on the Warriors when they were winning championships and how the old guys need to celebrate the young guys. And then he turns around and does this. He talks about how no, they don't belong on the same stage as these guys. Get over yourself. It's fine. Damian Lillard can share the floor with Amen Thompson for a few minutes. It's fine. And also, we wouldn't be in this situation if your generation and the generation that came before you hadn't made such a mockery of the All-Star game that they felt like they had to change the format. So the call is coming from inside the house, Draymond. This is all your fault if we really want to get down to it.
To quote Oscar Robertson, who cares about what Draymond Green says? Which was a great ding after Draymond's comments. But the thing I'm going to go to is he's been offered the head coaching job after. Who would trust Draymond Green to be a head coach of anything? Anything in life, not just basketball team, anything. He could barely run his own podcast. No, Draymond Green has not been offered a head coaching job. So, no, that's ridiculous. Come on.
Asked about those comments after the All-Star game, Kevin Durant said, well, I'm going to paraphrase here, but Kevin Durant essentially said, I think he would be a better coach than he would be a TV analyst, which I thought was great. Now, he did follow that up with, I think he's pretty good at that too, but I think the intention of the comments were clear. It was just a really interesting weekend from Draymond Green, who, to his credit, took full advantage of the opportunity that he had there. That's going to do it for us here on Locked On NBA. If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts. Check us out on YouTube. You can leave us a comment. We had a lot of opinions today. Want to hear your opinion there in the comment section, youtube.com/@LockedOnNBA. Thanks so much for making us your first listen every day. Be kind to each other, and we're going to see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On NBA.